The alien ship appeared in Earth's solar system on a Tuesday morning. It was small, sleek, and silver, moving slowly toward the moon where humans had built their largest space station. The ship sent a message in broken English asking to speak. With Earth's leaders, Admiral Lisa Martinez stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching the alien vessel dock with their outer platform. She was a tall woman with short black hair and tired eyes that had seen too many battles. Next to her stood Captain Jake Morrison, a man in his 40s who commanded Earth's newest battleship. Both officers watched their screens as the alien delegation walked through the airlock. The lead alien was female, or at least appeared to be. She had blue skin, 4 arms, and large golden eyes that seemed to hold great sadness. She wore simple white robes and carried no weapons. Behind her walked 2 other aliens who looked nervous and scared. "I am Ambassador Zethara of the Corvani Republic," the alien said through a translation device. Her voice was soft but desperate. "We come seeking help from the people of Earth." Admiral Martinez stepped forward. "Welcome to Luna Station. I'm Admiral Martinez. This is Captain Morrison. What kind of help do you need?" The alien ambassador touched a small device on her wrist. Suddenly, holographic images filled the air around them. The humans watched in silence as the images showed space battles, burning planets, and massive alien warships destroying everything in their path. "This is the Vaklesh Empire," Zethara explained. "They have been conquering our galaxy for over 200 years. They take worlds, kill the people who fight back, and make slaves of those who surrender. They have already taken 4 of our 7 star systems." Captain Morrison leaned closer to study the images. The Vaklesh ships were huge, dark, and covered in weapon ports. They moved in large groups and seemed to attack everything they found. In one image, he watched Vaklesh vessels fire on ships clearly marked with medical symbols. "They target hospitals?" Morrison asked, his voice growing cold. "They target everything," Zethara replied. "Hospitals, schools, refugee ships. They say fear makes conquest easier." Admiral Martinez felt anger building in her chest. She had spent 30 years in space, fighting pirates and protecting trade routes. But she had never seen anything like this. The images showed Vaklesh forces bombing cities full of civilians and shooting at escape pods. "What exactly are you asking from Earth?" Martinez asked. The ambassador's golden eyes grew hopeful. "We need ships, military ships. We have heard that humans are skilled warriors. We can pay well for your help. We offer advanced shield technology, rare metals, and trade agreements that would make Earth wealthy." "How many ships do you think you need?" Morrison asked. "Perhaps 20 of your warships?" "Maybe 30? Enough to help us defend our last 3 systems until we can evacuate our people to safer worlds." Martinez and Morrison exchanged glances. The alien had no idea what she was really asking for. "Show us more about these Vaklesh," Martinez said. For the next hour, they watched more holographic recordings. The Vaklesh Empire was massive, controlling hundreds of star systems. Their military was enormous, with thousands of warships and millions of soldiers. They had been expanding for centuries, destroying every civilization that got in their way. But as Martinez watched, she began to notice things that troubled her. The Vaklesh fought like bullies. They relied on fear and overwhelming numbers. Their tactics were simple and brutal. They expected their enemies to surrender quickly, and they had no real strategy for fighting determined resistance. "How long do we have?" Morrison asked. "Our intelligence says they are gathering a large fleet," Zethara replied. "Perhaps 4 weeks before they attack our remaining worlds." After the aliens left to wait for an answer, Martinez and Morrison walked to the station's observation deck. Through the large windows, they could see Earth hanging in space like a blue and white jewel. "What do you think?" Morrison asked. "I think these Vaklesh have been picking on the weak for too long," Martinez replied. "They've forgotten what happens when you corner someone who knows how to fight back. The Council won't approve a major deployment," Morrison warned. "They'll say it's not our fight." Martinez smiled grimly. "Then we'll have to convince them it's about to become our fight." Bullies like these don't stop until someone stops them. The next day, Martinez presented her case to Earth's Defense Council. The 12 members sat around a large table, listening as she showed them the alien recordings. Secretary Claire Williams, who led the council, watched the images with growing concern. "This is horrible," Williams said. "But these aliens live thousands of light years away. This conflict has nothing to do with Earth, doesn't it?" Martinez asked. "How long before these Vaklish finish conquering their local galaxy and start looking for new targets? How long before they find us?" Council member John Hayes shook his head. "We can't fight every war in the galaxy." "We're not talking about every war," Martinez replied. "We're talking about stopping genocidal maniacs before they become strong enough to threaten us." The debate continued for hours. Some council members worried about the cost. Others feared getting involved in alien politics. But when Martinez showed them footage of Vaklish forces destroying a hospital ship full of children, the room fell silent. "How many ships would you need for a defensive mission?" Williams asked finally. Martinez had been waiting for this question. "For a limited defensive action, maybe 100 ships." 100? Hayes gasped. "That's our entire deep space fleet." "That's what it takes to guarantee success," Martinez replied. "We can send fewer ships and hope for the best, or we can send enough to end this threat permanently." After more debate, the council voted to approve limited military assistance. They authorized Martinez to take 50 ships to help defend the Corvani Republic. It was more than the aliens had asked for, but less than Martinez wanted. As the council members left, Morrison approached Martinez. 50 ships, he said. "Think it'll be enough?" Martinez looked out the window at Earth's orbital shipyards where hundreds of warships floated in neat rows. "It'll have to be," she said. "But something tells me this is going to be bigger than anyone expects." 3 weeks after the meeting on Luna Station, Ambassador Zethara stood on the command deck of the Corvani Defense Station orbiting their capital world. Her golden eyes watched the empty space where human ships were supposed to appear. Defense. Minister Veltar paced nervously beside her, checking his instruments every few seconds. "Are you certain they said today?" Veltar asked for the 5th time that hour. "The human admiral was very clear," Zethara replied. "Their fleet would arrive in our system at midday." Veltar studied the readings on his screen again. The Corvani had prepared docking facilities for perhaps 20 human ships, maybe 30 at most. Their own fleet of 40 vessels waited nearby, ready to coordinate with their new human allies. "There," Zethara pointed at her display. "Something is coming out of hyperspace." A single bright flash appeared in the darkness of space, then another, then 10 more. Veltar counted the emerging ships on his screen, expecting the numbers to stop at around 50. They did not stop. More ships kept appearing. Dozens of them, then hundreds. The human fleet continued emerging from hyperspace for nearly 10 minutes. When the last vessel finally appeared, Veltar stared at his instruments in disbelief. "How many?" Zethara asked quietly. 237 ships, Veltar whispered. 237 human warships. The largest vessel hung in the center of the formation like a metal mountain. It was over 2 kilometers long and bristled with weapon ports. Smaller ships surrounded it in perfect formations, creating a sight that made both aliens step back from their viewing window. Admiral Martinez to Corvani Defense Station came. A calm voice over their communications system. "Requesting permission to approach?" Zethara found her voice first. "Permission granted, Admiral. We are honored by your arrival." As the human flagship moved closer, its true size became clear. The USS Constitution was larger than the biggest Corvani city. Its hull was dark gray metal marked with white numbers and symbols. Gun turrets. The size of buildings tracked slowly across its surface. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Constitution, next to Admiral Martinez. He watched the alien station grow larger on their main screen. Around them, dozens of human officers worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. "Think we overdid it a bit?" Morrison asked quietly. Martinez smiled. Better to bring too much firepower than not enough. Behind them, Captain Amy Roberts studied tactical displays showing the positions of all human ships. Her carrier USS Independence hung 2,000 kilometers away, surrounded by its escort vessels. Captain Steve Parker commanded the heavy cruiser, USS Defiant, which led a group of destroyers and frigates. "Admiral," reported Commander Helen Brooks from her station, "the Corvani are requesting a meeting aboard their station." "Tell them we'll be right over," Martinez replied. "Jake, Amy, Steve, you're with me. Let's go meet our new allies." An hour later, the human delegation sat around a large table in the Corvani station's main conference room. The aliens looked nervous and confused. Ambassador Zethara kept glancing at the tactical display showing the positions of human ships. "Admiral Martinez," she began carefully, "we are grateful for your assistance. But we only requested enough ships to help defend our remaining systems. This fleet you have brought, it seems prepared for something much larger." Martinez leaned back in her chair. "Ambassador, let me explain something about human military doctrine. When we decide to help someone, we don't do it halfway." Captain Morrison pulled up a holographic display showing the current situation. "You asked for enough ships to defend 3 star systems. We brought enough ships to end the threat completely." "End the threat?" Defense Minister Veltar asked. "You mean drive the Vaklesh away from our worlds?" "No," said Captain Roberts firmly. "We mean end the Vaklesh Empire." The aliens stared at the humans in shock. Zethara's forearms trembled slightly as she processed what she had just heard. "You cannot be serious," she said. "The Vaklesh Empire controls hundreds of star systems. They have thousands of warships. Their military is the largest force in known space." "Was the largest force," corrected Captain Parker. "They haven't met humans before." Admiral Martinez activated another display showing detailed scans of Vaklesh ships and weapons. "We've studied everything you showed us about their military. Their technology is impressive, but their tactics are basic. They rely on fear and overwhelming numbers because they've never faced real resistance." "But surely you understand the scale of what you're suggesting," Veltar protested. "Even with your large fleet, you are still outnumbered 10 to 1, Morrison smiled grimly. "Minister, let me tell you about human military history. We've been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've learned some important lessons." He changed the display to show human ship specifications. Lesson 1. Better technology beats larger numbers. Lesson 2. Good training beats superior numbers. Lesson 3. Proper tactics beat everything. "Your ships use kinetic weapons," Zethara observed, studying the human weapon systems. "Projectile cannons and missile systems. The Vaklesh use pure energy weapons. Energy weapons are considered more advanced." "Advanced doesn't always mean better," Admiral Martinez replied. "A railgun firing a tungsten projectile at significant fractions of light speed will punch through any energy shield ever built. Physics is physics." Commander Brooks joined the conversation from her position near the tactical display. "The Vaklesh expect their enemies to fight like they do? Ship-to-ship combat at close range with energy weapons. They're not prepared for coordinated missile strikes from extreme distances." "You seem very confident," Veltar said uncertainly. "We are confident," Martinez replied. "Because we've been studying warfare longer than most species have existed. Humans don't just fight wars. We perfect the art of warfare." Captain Roberts pulled up personnel files showing human military officers. "Every ship captain in our fleet has fought in at least 5 major battles. Every admiral has commanded fleets for decades. We don't promote people based on politics or family connections. We promote based on proven ability to win." The meeting continued for 2 more hours. The humans explained their battle plans, their logistic systems, and their rules of engagement. They showed the aliens detailed analyses of Vaklesh weaknesses and human strengths. "There is something I must ask," Zethara said finally. "Why are you really doing this? You could have sent a small defensive force as we requested. Why risk so much for people you barely know?" Admiral Martinez was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked directly at the alien ambassador. Because we've seen what happens when good people do nothing while bullies destroy the innocent. We've learned that evil only grows stronger when it faces no resistance. And we've decided that when we have the power to stop genocide, we have the responsibility to use that power. She stood up and walked to the window showing the human fleet. You asked for aid, Ambassador. We brought you something better. We brought you justice. As the human delegation prepared to return to their ships, Morrison approached Zathara privately. Ambassador, I want you to understand something important. This fleet didn't come here to help you defend your worlds. This fleet came here to make sure the Vaklish Empire never threatens anyone again. Zathara looked out at the massive human ships floating in space around their station. I am beginning to understand that we may have awakened something far more dangerous than we intended. Morrison smiled. You didn't awaken anything, Ambassador. You just pointed us in the right direction. Fleet Commander Jaxel of the Vaklish Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds. Around him, 400 Vaklish warships moved through space toward the Corveni border systems. It was the largest attack force the Empire had ever assembled, designed to crush any remaining resistance once and for all. Status report, Jaxel commanded, his voice echoing through the bridge. The Vaklesh were tall, gray-skinned beings with sharp teeth and red eyes that glowed in the darkness of their ships. All ships ready for battle, Commander, reported his second officer. Intelligence confirms the Corvani have gathered their remaining fleet at the border world of Kepler-7. They appear to be making their final stand. Jaxel smiled, showing rows of pointed teeth. And what of these mysterious allies the Corvani have supposedly found? Our scouts report unknown ships in the system, perhaps 50 vessels of strange design. They use primitive kinetic weapons instead of proper energy systems? Intelligence believes they are technologically inferior. Excellent, Jaxel said. We will destroy these foolish aliens as an example to anyone else who thinks to oppose the Empire. 3 star systems away, Admiral Martinez stood in the command center of the USS Constitution. Around her, dozens of human officers monitored displays showing the approaching Vaklish fleet. The humans had been tracking the enemy formation for 2 days. Vaklish fleet will reach the border in 6 hours, reported Lieutenant Commander Rick Davis from his sensor station. 412 ships moving in standard attack formation. Captain Morrison studied the tactical display. They're not even trying to hide their approach. Pure arrogance. That arrogance is about to cost them everything, Admiral Martinez replied. She activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Martinez. The enemy is approaching exactly as predicted. Execute Battle Plan Alpha. Across the Corvani system, human ships began moving into position. Captain Roberts launched fighter squadrons from her carrier while Captain Parker positioned his cruisers behind the moon of Kepler-7. Commander Brooks took her destroyers to the edge of the asteroid belt, where they could use the rocks for cover. Ambassador Zathara watched from the bridge of the Constitution, her golden eyes wide with fear and amazement. She had never seen such precise coordination between so many ships. Admiral, she said quietly, are you certain this will work? The Vaklesh have never been defeated in open battle. Martinez looked at the alien ambassador with calm confidence. Ambassador, the Vaklish have never fought humans before. When the Vaklish fleet arrived at the edge of Corvani space, they saw exactly what they expected, a defensive formation around the planet, with the strange alien ships mixed in among the Corvani vessels. To Jaxel, it looked like another easy victory. All ships attack formation, he commanded. Destroy the alien vessels first, then finish the Corvani. The Vaklish fleet charged forward in their traditional massive wave assault. 400 ships accelerated toward the planet, energy weapons charging for the first devastating volley. Jaxel had used this same tactic to conquer dozens of worlds, but as his fleet closed the distance, strange things began to happen. The human ships suddenly spread out in ways that made no sense to Vaklish tactical doctrine. Instead of staying in a defensive line, they formed a complex 3-dimensional pattern that seemed to surround the attacking fleet. What are they doing? Jaxel demanded. Unknown, Commander, his tactical officer replied. Their formation appears random. When the Vaklesh reached firing range, they opened fire with massive energy beams. The green bolts of death that had destroyed countless civilizations struck the human ships directly and bounced off. Impossible, Jaxel whispered, staring at his display. The human ships absorbed the energy attacks without taking any significant damage. Their shields flickered but held firm. Commander, his weapons officer called out, their defensive systems are far more advanced than our intelligence indicated. Before Jaxel could respond, the human fleet opened fire. The first salvo came from Commander Brooks' destroyers hiding in the asteroid belt. Railgun projectiles traveling at tremendous speed struck Vaklesh ships from unexpected angles. The tungsten slugs punched through enemy armor like it was paper. Then Captain Parker's cruisers fired their main guns. Massive kinetic projectiles slammed into Vaklesh command ships, destroying them in single hits. The projectiles were so fast that the Vaklesh sensors barely detected them before impact. Captain Roberts' fighters swarmed around the enemy formation, firing guided missiles that sought out Vaklesh engine systems. Each small fighter carried enough firepower to cripple ships 10 times their size. In the center of the battle, Admiral Martinez coordinated the assault from the Constitution. Her flagship's weapon systems locked onto the largest Vaklesh vessels and fired precisely aimed shots that took out command bridges and weapon systems. All ships, focus fire on their command vessels, Martinez ordered. Cut off the head and the body dies. The Vaklesh fleet, designed to overwhelm enemies through brute force, found themselves completely outmatched by human tactics. The humans didn't fight like any enemy the Vaklesh had ever faced. Instead of meeting force with force, the humans used speed, precision, and coordination. Retreat, Jaxel finally ordered, watching his fleet being systematically destroyed. Oh. Ships, emergency retreat. But Captain Morrison had anticipated this move. His battle group had positioned themselves behind the Vaklesh fleet during the initial assault. When the enemy tried to flee, they found human ships blocking their escape routes. No one leaves, Morrison said grimly, giving the order to fire. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, only 17 Vaklesh ships remained out of the original 412. These survivors limped away toward Vaklesh space, carrying news of the disaster. Jaxel's flagship was among the few that escaped, but barely. Half his crew was dead, his weapons were destroyed, and his engines were failing. As his ship struggled toward home, he sent a desperate message to the Vaklesh High Command. The humans are not what we thought, he transmitted. They fight like nothing we have ever encountered. Their weapons ignore our armor. Their tactics make no sense but somehow defeat us completely. We need to negotiate. On the Constitution's bridge, Admiral Martinez watched the last Vaklesh ships disappear into hyperspace. Around her, human officers reported minimal damage to their own fleet. Casualties? She asked. 3 ships with minor damage, Commander. Brooks reported 47 wounded, no deaths. Ambassador Zethara stared at the tactical display showing the debris field where the Vaklesh fleet had been destroyed. In 6 hours, the humans had accomplished what the Corvani had thought impossible. How? She whispered. Captain Morrison heard her question. We told you, Ambassador. The Vaklesh have been fighting the same way for centuries. They expect their enemies to be afraid, to fight defensively, to give up when faced with superior numbers. But humans don't give up, Admiral Martinez added. And we don't fight fair, we fight to win. What happens now? Zethara asked. Martinez looked at the star charts showing Vaklesh territory. Now we finish what they started. The survivors will warn their leaders about us, but it won't matter. We're not stopping until every conquered world is free. You mean to invade their territory? I mean to liberate it, Martinez corrected. There's a difference. As the human fleet began moving toward Vaklesh space, Captain Roberts approached. The Admiral think they'll try to negotiate? Martinez smiled coldly. Probably, but they had their chance to be civilized. They chose genocide instead? And if they surrender? Then we'll accept their surrender and put them on trial for war crimes. But somehow, I don't think they're the surrendering type. The Constitution turned toward enemy territory, followed by the rest of the human fleet. Behind them, the Corvani system was safe for the first time in years, but ahead of them lay an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. An empire that was about to learn what happened when humans decided to end a threat permanently. The real war was just beginning. Supreme Commander Thekamur of the Vaklish Empire sat in his throne room, reading the disaster reports that kept flooding in from across his territory. In the 3 weeks since the humans had destroyed Fleet Commander Jaxel Armada, everything had gone wrong. The massive alien was twice the size of a human with thick gray skin and burning red eyes. His throne room was decorated with trophies from conquered worlds, but today those symbols of past victories brought him no comfort. "Give me the full report," he commanded his intelligence chief. "Yes, Supreme Commander," the smaller Vaklish replied, consulting his datapad. "The humans have attacked 17 of our military installations across 4 star systems. All attacks were simultaneous and perfectly coordinated." Thekamura's claws dug into the armrests of his throne. 17 installations at once? That's impossible. No fleet can be in that many places at the same time. The humans appear to divide their forces without losing effectiveness, the intelligence chief continued. Each attack group had exactly the right number of ships to overwhelm our defenses. They knew our strengths and weaknesses better than we do. Across Vaklish space, the Empire's military commanders were discovering what total war meant when waged. By humans, Captain Steve Parker led assault groups that captured 3 major supply depots in a single day. Commander Helen Brooks coordinated precision strikes against enemy shipyards, destroying the facilities that built Vaklish warships. At the Vaklish military complex on Zarian Prime, General Vector watched human ships approach his heavily defended base. He commanded over 200 vessels and had fought in dozens of campaigns. He was confident his forces could hold against any attack. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the human fleet is requesting our surrender." "Surrender?" Vector laughed harshly. "Tell these aliens that the Vaklish do not surrender. We will crush them as we have crushed all others." The human response came from Captain Parker himself. "General Vector, this is Captain Parker of the USS Defiant. You have 30 minutes to evacuate all non-combatants from your facility. After that, we will commence bombardment." 30 minutes? Vector snarled, "Attack now! Destroy these arrogant fools!" The Vaklish fleet charged toward the human ships in their traditional formation. But as they closed distance, something strange happened. The human vessels suddenly scattered in all directions, moving so fast that Vaklish weapons could not track them. Where did they go? Vector demanded. His answer came in the form of missile strikes from 6 different directions. The humans had used their superior speed to surround the Vaklish formation completely. Guided missiles struck Vaklish ships with devastating accuracy, while railgun fire punched through armor like it was made of paper. In less than 2 hours, General Vector's entire fleet was destroyed or disabled. The human ships then turned their attention to the military base itself. "This is Captain Parker," came the voice over the communication system. "Your fleet has been neutralized. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war." Vector stared at the wreckage of his fleet floating in space around his base. In 40 years of military service, he had never seen such complete destruction achieved so quickly. "We surrender," he said quietly. Similar scenes played out across Vaklish territory. At every major military installation, human forces arrived with overwhelming firepower and perfect intelligence. They knew exactly where to strike and how many ships to bring. They offered surrender terms before each battle and honored those terms when accepted. Lieutenant Commander Rick Davis led specialized rescue units that liberated Vaklish prison camps. These facilities held thousands of enslaved beings from dozens of different species, all captured during the Empire's centuries of conquest. "Are we free?" asked a small blue alien as Davis's Marines broke open the prison cells on Vaklish Station 7. "You're free," Davis confirmed. "The humans have come to end the Vaklish Empire." Word of the liberation spread quickly through underground networks across Vaklish space. Species that had been enslaved for generations began to hope for the first time in decades. Some started planning rebellions, knowing that human forces would support their efforts on the mining world of Keldon IV. The enslaved Zephyrians rose up against their Vaklesh overseers. When Vaklesh reinforcements arrived to crush the rebellion, they found human ships waiting for them. "This world is under the protection of the Terran fleet," Admiral Martinez announced over open channels. "Any attempt to harm the local population will be met with immediate military response." The Vaklesh commander took one look at the human battleships and ordered his fleet to retreat without firing a shot, back on the Vaklesh homeworld. Supreme Commander Thekmer received increasingly desperate reports from his remaining forces. In just 2 months, the empire that had taken centuries to build was falling apart. "How many systems have we lost?" he asked his staff. 47 systems have declared independence, his aide reported. 16 more have requested human protection. Our military has lost over 60% of its ships and installations. What about our allies? The Kregan Confederacy promised to support us. The Kregans have declared neutrality, Supreme Commander. They say they have no desire to fight humans. Thekmar stood up from his throne and walked to the large window overlooking his capital city. For the first time in his life, he felt real fear. "Send envoys to the humans," he commanded. "Tell them we wish to negotiate." The Vaklesh envoys found Admiral Martinez aboard the Constitution as her fleet approached another Vaklesh stronghold. The human admiral received them in her ready room, along with Captain Morrison and Ambassador Zethara. "We come seeking terms," the lead Vaklesh envoy said. "Our Supreme Commander wishes to discuss territorial concessions and reparations." Admiral Martinez looked at the aliens with cold eyes. "You want to negotiate? After centuries of genocide and slavery, you want to make a deal? We can offer significant compensation," the envoy continued. "Territory, resources, technology. The Empire is willing to withdraw from disputed systems." "Disputed systems?" Captain Morrison stepped forward. "Every system you control was stolen through conquest and murder. We offer to return some conquered worlds to their original inhabitants," the envoy said desperately. "Some?" Admiral Martinez stood up. "Let me make something clear. You don't get to negotiate which innocent people you've murdered. You don't get to choose which enslaved populations to free." She walked to the window showing space outside where human warships continued their advance toward Vaklesh territory. "Here are our terms," she said without turning around. "Complete withdrawal from all conquered systems. Immediate freedom for all enslaved populations. Full reparations to every species you have harmed. War crimes trials for all military and political leaders." "That would mean the end of our empire," the envoy protested. "Yes," Martinez replied simply. "That's exactly what it means. And if we refuse?" Admiral Martinez finally turned to face the Vaklesh delegates. "Then we will continue doing what we're already doing. We will liberate every world you hold by force. We will free every slave you have taken. And we will hunt down every war criminal in your government." "You cannot destroy an entire empire," the envoy said, though his voice lacked conviction. "We're not destroying it," Captain Morrison corrected. "We're freeing it. There's a difference." The envoys left without reaching any agreement. As their shuttle departed, Ambassador Zethara approached Admiral Martinez. "Do you really mean to conquer their entire empire?" she asked. "We don't conquer, Ambassador," Martinez replied. "We liberate. Every world we take from the Vaklesh will be given back to its rightful inhabitants. Every enslaved population will be freed. Every war criminal will face justice. And after that?" Martinez looked out at the stars ahead of them. "After that, this part of the galaxy will finally be free to choose its own destiny." The human fleet continued its advance toward the Vaklesh homeworld. Behind them, liberated worlds began the long process of rebuilding their civilizations. Ahead of them lay the final confrontation with an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for far too long. The Vaklesh Empire was dying, and the humans were merely hastening its inevitable end. The siege of the Vaklesh homeworld began on a quiet morning when Admiral Martinez's fleet appeared in the outer reaches of their solar system. Supreme Commander Thekmer stood in his command center, watching the sensor displays as more and more human ships emerged from hyperspace. How many? He asked his tactical officer. Over 400 ships, Supreme Commander, the officer replied with a trembling voice. They have surrounded our entire planet. Thekmer looked at the display showing human vessels positioned at every possible escape route. The humans had not come to negotiate. They had come to end the Vaklesh Empire forever. Admiral Martinez broadcast her message to the planet on all frequencies. People of the Vaklesh homeworld, this is Admiral Martinez of the Terran Fleet. We have come to accept the surrender of your government and military forces. You have 72 hours to comply. The message was simple and direct. No threats, no demands for tribute. Just a clear statement of what would happen next. In the capital city below, millions of Vaklesh civilians watched their leaders debate what to do. Some wanted to fight to the death. Others wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. But after months of watching their empire crumble, most simply wanted the war to end. We still have our planetary defense systems, General Lokhtar argued in the Emergency Council meeting. Our shields can withstand orbital bombardment. We have weapons that can hurt their ships. With what? Supreme Commander Thekmer asked bitterly. Half our defense fleet is destroyed. The other half is scattered across the galaxy trying to hold what little territory we have left. Then we fight with what we have, Lokhtar insisted. The Vaklesh do not surrender. The Vaklesh are finished. Thekmer replied. Look at what these humans have done. In 3 months they have destroyed an empire that took us centuries to build. On the second day of the siege, Captain Jake Morrison led reconnaissance missions around the planet. His ships scanned the Vaklesh defenses while staying just out of weapon range. The humans wanted to know exactly what they were facing. Their planetary shields are strong, Morrison reported to Admiral Martinez, but they have weak points at the polar regions. Their ground-based weapons are powerful but limited in range. Civilian casualties? Martinez asked. Minimal if we target. Only military installations, Morrison replied. Their cities are spread out and most defensive positions are away from population centers. Admiral Martinez studied the tactical reports. The Vaklesh homeworld was heavily defended, but not beyond human capabilities to capture. The real question was whether it would be necessary. On the third day, a small Vaklesh shuttle approached. The human flagship under a flag of truce. Supreme Commander Thekmer himself had come to surrender. The massive alien looked old and defeated as he was escorted to Admiral Martinez's ready room. Captain Morrison and Ambassador Zathara were present. As witnesses to the historic moment, I come to surrender the Vaklesh military forces, Thekmer said quietly. We cannot continue this war. What about your government? Admiral Martinez asked. I am the government, Thekmer replied. The Civilian Council voted to give me full authority to end this conflict. And the terms? Thekmer straightened his shoulders, trying to maintain some dignity in defeat. We accept complete surrender. We will withdraw from all conquered territories. We will free all enslaved populations. We will submit to war crimes trials for those responsible for atrocities. Admiral Martinez looked at the alien commander who had terrorized the galaxy for decades. He was still dangerous, still capable of ordering the deaths of millions. But he was also beaten, and he knew it. Your forces will lay down their weapons. Immediately, she said. Your government will be dissolved. Your military will be disbanded. Representatives from every species you have enslaved will oversee the transition. And our people? Thekmer asked. The civilians who had no part in the conquests will be protected under galactic law, Martinez replied. We don't punish entire populations for the crimes of their leaders. The surrender ceremony took place on the surface of the Vaklesh homeworld. Captain Amy Roberts led the Marine units that accepted the formal surrender of Vaklesh military forces. Thousands of alien soldiers laid down their weapons and submitted. To human authority, Commander Helen Brooks supervised the deactivation of planetary defense systems. The mighty shields that had protected the Vaklish homeworld for centuries were powered down forever, Lieutenant Commander Rick Davis coordinated, with freed slave populations across the galaxy. Ships full of liberated beings began the long journey home to worlds they had not seen in generations. "It's over," Ambassador Zathara said as she stood beside Admiral Martinez, watching the surrender ceremonies on the planet below. "The Vaklesh Empire is finished." "This part is finished," Martinez corrected. "Now comes the harder work." Over the following months, the galaxy began to change in ways no one had expected. The Galactic Council, a loose alliance of peaceful species, found itself dealing with dozens of newly independent worlds. Many of these planets had been enslaved for so long that they had forgotten how to govern themselves. Captain Steve Parker led reconstruction efforts on former Vaklesh worlds. Human engineers worked alongside alien specialists to rebuild cities, establish governments, and create new economic systems. It was slow, difficult work, but it was necessary. "The Kralins want to rebuild their old monarchy," Parker reported during a council meeting. "The Zephyrians prefer a democratic system. The Aquarians want to join a federation with their neighboring worlds." "Let them choose," Admiral Martinez replied. "That's what freedom means, the right to make your own decisions." Ambassador Zathara addressed the expanded Galactic Council 6 months after the Vaklesh surrender. Representatives from over 60 species filled the Great Hall, many speaking for worlds that had been silent for centuries. "The humans came when we asked for help," she said to the assembled delegates. "But they gave us far more than we requested. They gave us justice." She turned to look at Admiral Martinez, who sat with the human delegation. "We asked for aid to defend a few worlds. Earth's fleet brought total war against tyranny itself. They didn't just save the Corvani Republic. They liberated an entire region of space." The Council voted unanimously to establish the Terran Protection Accords, a mutual defense treaty that extended Earth's protection to any civilization facing extinction-level threats. Admiral Martinez accepted the position of Supreme Commander of Allied Forces, while Captain Morrison became director of the new Galactic Military Academy. "What will you teach them?" Ambassador Zathara asked Morrison as they toured the Academy's new facilities on Earth. "How to protect the innocent," Morrison replied. "How to fight only when necessary, but to fight decisively when you do. How to distinguish between conquest and liberation. And if another empire like the Vaklesh arises?" Morrison looked out at the stars through the Academy's observation deck. "Then we'll do what we did this time. We'll end the threat permanently." Years later, when historians wrote about the Vaklesh War, they would call it the shortest conquest of the largest empire in galactic history, but the humans who fought it knew better. They had not conquered anything. They had simply restored freedom to those who had lost it. Admiral Martinez retired to a quiet house on Earth, where she grew flowers and read books about peaceful things. But she kept her uniform ready, just in case. Because somewhere in the galaxy, there might be other people calling for help, and when good people called for aid, Earth would always answer. The galaxy had learned a simple lesson. When humans promise to help, they don't do it halfway. They do it completely, decisively, and permanently. Ambassador Zathara had been right about one thing. The Corvani had awakened something when they asked Earth for help. They had awakened the knowledge that somewhere in the dark between the stars, there were people who would never ignore a cry for help. The universe was a safer place because of it.